5 Mysteries from Florida. 1. The disappearance of Tiffany Daniels, 2013. Tiffany Daniels, a 25-year-old theater technician living in Pensacola, Florida, disappeared on August 12, 2013. She had just finished her shift at Pensacola State College and told her supervisor that she planned to take some time off from work, though she didn't specify where she was going. After leaving work, Tiffany was never seen again. That evening, Tiffany was supposed to meet her roommate for dinner, but she never arrived. Her friends and family immediately grew concerned, as it was out of character for her to leave without informing anyone. A few days later, Tiffany's car, a gray Toyota 4Runner, was found abandoned at Fort Pickens, a remote area in Pensacola Beach. The car still had her bike, phone charger, and other personal belongings inside. Despite extensive searches around Fort Pickens and the surrounding areas, no trace of Tiffany has ever been found. The only lead investigators had was a sighting of her car on a traffic camera, driving toward Pensacola Beach the day she disappeared. Investigation. Tiffany's family and authorities scoured the area where her car was found but came up empty-handed. The lack of any signs of foul play made the investigation particularly difficult, leading to many speculative theories. Some wondered if Tiffany had chosen to disappear voluntarily, but her family firmly rejected this idea. Several people reported seeing Tiffany's car in the days after her disappearance, suggesting that she or someone else may have been driving it before it was abandoned. However, none of these leads resulted in any significant breakthroughs. One of the lesser-known facts about Tiffany's case is that, just days before she vanished, she had posted about taking a spontaneous trip on her social media accounts. Some theorized that she may have been planning to leave town for a while, but her family insists that she wouldn't have left without telling them. Additionally, Tiffany had a personal connection to the area around Fort Pickens. She frequently visited the beach, making it plausible that she had gone there for a peaceful evening before something tragic occurred. Theories. There are several theories about Tiffany's disappearance. One theory is that she may have fallen victim to a random act of violence or abduction. The area where her car was found is relatively isolated, making it a prime spot for foul play. Another theory is that Tiffany may have gotten into trouble while exploring the beach or nearby trails, though no physical evidence supports this. Some have speculated that Tiffany might have encountered someone she knew who led her into danger, but there's no definitive proof. Her disappearance remains a cold case, with her family continuing to search for answers. 2. The death of Michelle OConnell, 2010. Michelle OConnell, a 24-year-old mother, was found dead from a gunshot wound in her home in St. Augustine, Florida, on September 2, 2010. The case was initially ruled a suicide, but many, including Michelle's family, believe she was murdered by her boyfriend, Jeremy Banks, a St. Johns County deputy sheriff. On the night of Michelle's death, she and Jeremy had argued after attending a concert. According to Jeremy, Michelle went into a bedroom, and moments later, he heard a gunshot. He claimed he found Michelle dead with his service weapon lying next to her. Although the initial investigation concluded that Michelle had taken her own life, several inconsistencies in the case led to further scrutiny. Her family immediately questioned the ruling, pointing out that Michelle had been planning to leave Jeremy and start a new life. She had even packed a bag and made plans for the future, which seemed inconsistent with someone contemplating suicide. Investigation. Due to Jeremy's position as a deputy, the case was investigated by his colleagues, which raised concerns about impartiality. Evidence at the scene, including Michelle's injuries, was inconsistent with suicide. She had suffered a broken jaw, which some experts believe could indicate a physical altercation before her death. A later independent investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement cast doubt on the suicide ruling, but Jeremy was never charged. The case remains officially closed, though Michelle's family continues to fight for justice. One obscure fact about Michelle's death is that a second shot had been fired from Jeremy's gun, but it went into the floor. Investigators have never fully explained why there was a second shot if Michelle had shot herself. Additionally, Michelle had texted friends earlier that evening, expressing concerns about her relationship with Jeremy and hinting that she was scared of him. These texts were downplayed in the initial investigation but later became key pieces of evidence for those arguing that Michelle was murdered. Theories. There are two primary theories about Michelle's death. The official theory is that she committed suicide after a heated argument with Jeremy, overwhelmed by stress and emotional turmoil. However, her family and some forensic experts argue that she was murdered, pointing to the inconsistencies in the physical evidence and the strained nature of her relationship with Jeremy. This case remains highly controversial, with many believing that justice has yet to be served. 3. The Murder of Margie Skeek, 1986. Marjorie Skeek was a 67-year-old woman living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who was found murdered in her home in 1986. Margie, as she was known by her friends, lived alone and had few known enemies. Her murder was particularly brutal, and the crime scene shocked investigators. On the evening of March 5, 1986, a neighbor noticed Margie's front door was ajar and called the police. When officers arrived, they found Margie dead from multiple stab wounds. There were signs of a struggle throughout the house, but nothing of significant value was stolen. Investigators believed that the killer had known Margie, as there were no signs of forced entry. Investigation. The investigation into Margie's murder was slow to develop. Police interviewed several neighbors and friends but found no strong leads. There were rumors that Margie had been involved in a long-standing feud with a distant relative, but there was no concrete evidence linking this person to the crime. In the months following the murder, investigators explored the possibility that Margie had been the victim of a botched robbery, but this theory was eventually ruled out. The case went cold, and despite occasional tips from the public, Margie's killer was never identified. One lesser-known fact about Margie's murder is that, in the days leading up to her death, she had reported hearing strange noises outside her home at night. Margie had told friends that she felt as though someone was watching her, but she brushed off these concerns, believing she was being paranoid. Another obscure detail is that a neighbor reported seeing a suspicious vehicle parked near Margie's house on the night of the murder, but the lead was never fully pursued by investigators. Theories. There are several theories about who may have killed Margie. Some believe that the distant relative with whom she had a feud may have been responsible. Others think that Margie may have been targeted by someone who knew her routine and had planned the attack well in advance. Another theory suggests that Margie's killer may have been a transient or a drifter who had passed through the area. However, without any concrete evidence, Margie's case remains a mystery. 4. The Case of Terrance Williams, 2004. Terrance Williams, a 27-year-old man from Naples, Florida, disappeared on January 12, 2004, after being pulled over by Collier County Sheriff's Deputy Stephen Calkins. Terrance was last seen getting into Calkins' patrol car, but he was never seen again. His disappearance, along with that of Felipe Santos, another man who vanished after a similar encounter with Calkins, remains unsolved. Terrance had been driving without a license on the day he disappeared, and his car was having mechanical issues. After being pulled over by Calkins, he was placed in the back of the patrol car, but no official arrest was made. According to Calkins, he dropped Terrance off at a Circle K gas station, but there is no evidence to support this claim. Investigation. Despite being the last person to see Terrance alive, Calkins was never charged in connection with the disappearance. His inconsistent statements and failure to document the encounter raised suspicions, and he was eventually fired from the sheriff's department for dishonesty. Terrance's family, along with civil rights activist Al Sharpton, campaigned for further investigation into Calkins, but the case remains unsolved. One obscure fact about the case is that both Terrance and Felipe Santos disappeared after encounters with Calkins under nearly identical circumstances. This strange coincidence has led many to suspect that Calkins was involved in both disappearances, though no concrete evidence has been found. Additionally, Calkins failed to properly document his interactions with both men, leading to further suspicions about his involvement. Some theorize that Deputy Stephen Calkins, due to inconsistencies in his accounts, may have been involved in the disappearances of both Terrance Williams and Felipe Santos. His behavior after both incidents, failing to properly document interactions, changing his story, and his eventual dismissal from the sheriff's department, has fueled suspicions. Though Calkins denies any involvement, the parallels between the two cases are striking. However, without physical evidence or witnesses, the case against him remains circumstantial. Another theory is that both men, having been dropped off by Calkins, may have encountered a third party who harmed them. This theory suggests the possibility that Calkins, despite his suspicious behavior, may not be directly responsible for their disappearances but could be hiding other misconduct, such as neglect. As the investigation grew colder, civil rights activists and high-profile figures like Al Sharpton advocated for further action, but no resolution has been reached. Both families remain without closure, and the whereabouts of Terrance Williams and Felipe Santos continue to be a mystery. 5. The Disappearance of Amy Hurst, 1981. Amy Hurst, a 19-year-old Florida State University student, vanished without a trace in December 1981. A diligent student and active in her sorority, Amy was last seen walking to her car after an evening study session at Strozier Library on campus in Tallahassee. Her car was found a day later in a parking lot, but Amy was never seen again. On the night of her disappearance, Amy had left the library around 10 p.m. Her friends expected her to return to their shared apartment shortly after, but she never arrived. The next day, her car was discovered in a nearby parking lot with no signs of struggle or any personal belongings missing. Amy's friends and family were adamant that she would not have left voluntarily. She had plans for the upcoming holiday break and was described as happy and looking forward to a trip back home. Her sudden disappearance sparked a massive search effort, but no trace of Amy was found. Investigation. The investigation into Amy's disappearance was intense. Authorities interviewed students, faculty, and campus security but came up with no solid leads. Surveillance cameras were not common on campuses in the early 1980s, so there was no footage of Amy's final movements. There were also no witnesses who saw anything unusual around the time she went missing. The investigation shifted focus when it was revealed that several other women in the Tallahassee area had reported being followed or harassed by an unknown man around the same time. Police began to suspect that Amy may have fallen victim to a predator who had been stalking women on campus, but no arrests were made, and the case eventually went cold. One lesser-known detail is that, in the months leading up to her disappearance, Amy had received anonymous letters. These letters were disturbing and contained vague threats, but Amy had not taken them seriously at the time. Police later tried to trace the origin of the letters, but they were unable to determine who sent them. Another obscure fact is that, just 2 weeks before Amy disappeared, there had been an attempted abduction of another female student in the same area. The student managed to escape, but the case was never solved, leading some to believe the incidents might have been connected. Theories. The leading theory is that Amy was abducted by a stalker or serial predator who had been watching her movements. Given the other incidents of harassment reported on campus around the same time, some believe that Amy's disappearance may have been part of a larger pattern of violence against women in the area. Another theory is that Amy may have been the victim of a random act of violence. Tallahassee, while generally a safe city, had experienced occasional violent crimes during that period, and it's possible that Amy was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Despite years of investigation, no concrete evidence has been found to support any one theory, and Amy's fate remains a mystery. Conclusion. Florida is home to some of the most chilling and perplexing unsolved mysteries in the United States. From the tragic and suspicious deaths of Michelle O'Connell and Marjorie Skeek to the strange disappearances of Tiffany Daniels, Terrance Williams, Felipe Santos, and Amy Hurst, these cases leave behind countless questions and few answers. Theories abound, ranging from foul play by trusted individuals to random acts of violence by unknown perpetrators. These cases serve as stark reminders that even in the Sunshine State, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. Each mystery carries its own unique set of circumstances and unanswered questions, and for the families left behind, the pursuit of justice continues. Thank you for watching. If you found these stories compelling, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for future episodes. We'll be covering more unsolved mysteries, disappearances, and strange cases from around the world, and we'd love to have you join us on the journey.